Mark. Hello, Mark. Mark says, well, 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 the Divine Father returns. Thank you for the compliment, Mark. How are you, dear? So let's see. James. James, and thank you, Mehran, for your help today. My pleasure, James. Good to see you here. I can't sleep, he says, for the benefit of all. Well, my question is how to put negative thoughts out of my mind at night that stop me from getting rest and sleep. These feelings flow back to me, especially at night, and feelings of guilt, ego, and remorse flood over me. I want to be able to simply get a good night's rest without relying on sleeping tablets or other substances. This is compounded by fear of the future. I have watched so many of your videos and know about trying to stay in the present moment, but it's always of the point of sleeping that I have difficulty. You know, if you go in a tennis court and keep hitting the ball, not knowing how a good serve is like, or good forehand is like, or good backhand is like, just hit the ball. And you hit the ball every time and you see, wow, it's not going exactly where I want it to go. It's all over the place. And you keep doing the same thing all the time. What are you really doing? You're actually enforcing doing what you're doing in the same way, which is the wrong way, and you will always get the same results. Meaning you're conditioning yourself to become expert in hitting it bad, in hitting it outside of the court. Why? Because you never tried to read the book or get a coach and exactly know how to hold your forehand, your fingers, the distance between the racket and your elbows, distance between your elbow and your body, and how to move forward, how to be forced forward, how to be step forward, how to position yourself, how to... You didn't do any of these, but you kept doing the same thing over and over in the same way, and you got the same results. And lo and behold, all this time you were teaching yourself how to do the bad thing in the best way. Meaning you were enforcing your learning in your head, your program of how to play tennis in the worst way that you know, by keep doing it the same wrong way that you always did. So you've been conditioning yourself to hit bad, hit wrong. And this is exactly what you do. When you're constantly during the day or night, constantly focusing on regrets, blaming yourself, thinking that the world has come to an end, thinking all these negative thoughts, what are you doing? You're conditioning yourself to make this negative thinking a default way of your mind to process. The material process ends up thinking, okay, what am I going to manufacture today? The brain says to itself, well, there's nothing on the agenda, but my default is to manufacture negative thoughts. Because that's what my guy does. He constantly thinks about bullshit, nonsense, irresponsible things by blaming himself, or negative things by putting himself down. So I'm comfortable manufacturing that. It's a no-brainer. It's easy. So that's what I'm going to do. Because I see no other things for me to manufacture, no other blueprints for me to manufacture. So your mind is going to do what is the most easiest and what's been most practiced, like the tennis court. You practice constantly. You're practicing to guilt yourself, to blame yourself, to think something wrong you did. And you got to come to the question, why am I blaming myself for? Have I killed anyone? What have I done? I'm blaming myself because I don't have the girl that really was just giving me pleasure, in your case. Now that I don't have that pleasure, I think what I really never thought is the right girl for me is the right girl now. Why? Because I'm all focusing on the pleasure part, and I don't have the pleasure of it now, but I like pleasure. So I think because I don't have what I like, which is the pleasure, and I'm not thinking about anything else about the girl, therefore the girl must have been a good thing. Because all I'm thinking about the pleasure part of it. And I like pleasure. Who doesn't? And now that I don't have that pleasure, which is the same girl that I didn't think is the right girl for me, but now that I'm only focused on the pleasure part of it, and I don't have that, I think the girl was perfect in every way. And therefore, I'm going to blame myself for having lost something perfect. So first thing you got to do is to realize she was not perfect. She was not what you wanted. She was not something that you would choose out of a lineup. See, that's the one I want, because her mentality, her manners, her way of living, her, all the things compatible with us is perfect. You wouldn't have. But you did. Then you got conditioned by interaction with her to the point, but you still, while you were, in a relationship with her, you were not really doing everything that you could have done for a girl that you would have loved and be your first choice. Why is that? Because she wasn't compatible to you, and you knew it. Your inner thoughts knew it. Your intuition knew it. So you didn't really do your best as you could, because you thought she wasn't qualified enough for you to put out all that what you could for your favorite choice. So you did, naturally. But the pleasure part of it, the intimacy and all that, was good. Now that she's no longer there, you think only about the pleasure parts, and you're neglecting to remind yourself that you purposely didn't make the efforts that you now think you should have. If you would really believe that you should have, you would have. But you didn't, because you didn't think she was qualified. Not that you were an asshole, you just didn't think she's qualified enough, good enough for you to leave everything else that you thought you should have sacrificed and change your ways and to comply with the way she wanted things to be. You didn't think she was qualified for that. So you didn't do it. That was the right choice for you. Now that you don't have the pleasure part of the relationship that you liked, you think the whole thing was good, that you actually had a girl that was perfectly qualified for you. And now you blame yourself to have lost a perfect match. It wasn't a perfect match. That's why you didn't behave perfectly. You did it the way it was suitable to you. Therefore, there is no guilt. What's the guilt for? You made the right decision when you made it. Now, there are some changes that you and I both know you want to make, and that's for your natural well-being, and that's good. But that doesn't have anything to do with you feeling guilt. But the fact that all day long you think about this, you're conditioning yourself to have a default view of this relationship memory as if you're guilty. So you're constantly conjuring up guilt feelings, and your memory is now being reinforced by all these guilt feelings. Your mind is getting the default programming of the task, the mandate of creating negative thoughts and continuing blaming. So you're actually playing the tennis in the wrong way, and you're conditioning yourself to continue that. First thing you got to realize is that there is no guilt because of what I just discussed. Focus on the fact that how this was and why you weren't doing what you could have done. You had a reason for it. Whatever the reason, that's what you did, and that's how it was. So therefore, there's no guilt. There's no guilt. There is no shame. There is no blame. If you think having pleasure in a relationship is good enough to think that the relationship was perfect relationship, then I bet you if you go to any of these outside discos or bars or whatever and pick up someone and have a pleasurable day or two with her, then you should think that she's perfect as well, because every woman is capable of providing certain kind of pleasure in a relationship she has with her choice. Every woman. Are you going to call everyone then perfect for you? No. And this one, you know it wasn't. If it was, you wouldn't be talking to me right now, because everything would have been still the same together. But you know, just because you did not comply with someone else's plan and agenda, which was good for them but wasn't good for you at the time, it doesn't mean you're guilty of anything. How come she's okay to choose what she wants to do and to expect a certain kind of a goal and plans, objectives, but you're not? And if you're not, then you're guilty because you didn't provide, you didn't offer what she wanted. Why? Because now you're deprived from the pleasure. So really we go back to the pleasure. You're only focusing on the pleasure of the relationship. Otherwise the relationship wasn't anything to write home about. So what are you guilty of? You think you should blame yourself because your desire is dissatisfied, because you're not able to offer your desire, pleasure, to fulfill your desires, requests. So you think you owe something to your desire part. Well, I'm trying to tell you, your desire is not you. You're the boss. And as a whole, you decided that wasn't good enough for me to put out everything. And you didn't. There is no guilt. What are you guilty towards? Who? Who is claiming anything from you? Who that you feel guilty? She is with another guy right now, so she's not claiming anything. She got the best of you for 3 years, whatever you had to offer, many different ways, and now she's off to the races. She's off with somebody else. So you're not guilty of having done any wrong to her. What are you guilty of? So you're guilty, you think, to yourself, because you think you're deprived from pleasure. So you think because you can't give yourself your desire the pleasure that it wants, then you're guilty of that. Well, your desire is not you. It's got no right to request anything. You're the one who is the matter, not your desire. So you're guilty of what? To whom? Who is claiming that you're guilty? You. Why? Because you don't have pleasure. Because that was all it was. Because she's not asking you for anything. She's not calling you guilty of anything. She's having fun with another guy. So you're guilty of having deprived yourself from having or continued having a pleasure, right? So why? Why you can't call that guilty? Guilty for what? Go get another pleasure. In time, you will. You just think that you may not have it as good. But that's really silly, isn't it? Because you're telling me you're a fortune teller. You can tell what's ahead. You know everything. But how could you know everything when you can't see anything? You can't see anything of the future, but you're telling me you know everything about the future. How could that be? I'm asking you to wait. Continue the journey. There is a mountain in front of you. You can't say because there's a mountain in front of me, then there's nothing else behind the mountain either. I'm saying believe that there is something the other side of the mountain, therefore just go up, continue. Instead of saying, I'm guilty of being in front of the mountain, so I think there's nothing else the other side, so I'm just going to hang in there. I'm saying no. Just because you don't see behind the mountain doesn't mean there's nothing else waiting for you. And the same thing here. Just because you don't see the future doesn't mean the future doesn't have anything to offer you. You can't know that unless you tell me you're a fortune teller and you know everything. If that's the case, well, I want to see what's in my future from you. But if you don't know it, then relax. No guilt. Continue the journey and see what comes to you. And if it's suitable, then you get it as a sustenance, as whatever it is. Who knows? How do you know that this what happened wasn't to the best of your advantage? Wasn't the best thing for you? And who knows, and how do you know nothing better is waiting for you? How could you tell? Did you know you're going to meet this girl before you met this girl? No. So how could you know that you're not going to meet anybody else after this girl? How? If you look back, anything that happened to you, you didn't know it before it happened to you. So how could you suddenly know everything about what's in your future? Because you can't see anything, you conclude there's nothing in your future. That's not fair. On that note, be open-minded. Understand that so many opportunities going to be in this world and is in this world. Just because I haven't arrived to the circus doesn't mean there is no circus. There is no act. I'm just not there yet. Just because you haven't arrived to see what the future holds doesn't mean the future doesn't have anything for you. So for now, on that note, just relax, have no guilt, and be happy that possibly wonderful things are awaiting you, and regardless if you see them or not. And on that note, sleep easy, rest your mind, don't worry, be happy. That's what they say, I guess. For now, think about these things, and this is going to be recorded so you can listen to it again. And perhaps you will sleep well, and then we'll talk about more of this stuff and fortify this concept. So don't forget that you gotta condition yourself for not thinking negative, not to condition yourself to continue thinking negatively. The more negative you think, the more it becomes a default of your mind thinking that way. The more you'll be hopeful and think about the things you got to do in this life, things that are awaiting you, and things that you don't know and could be wonderful waiting for you. This could be a blessing for you. Thinking this way, the default of thinking would change, and the negative thoughts would reduce to the point that you would be free from them constantly bugging you up. Talk to you soon.